And so I'm getting set up here for doing my hand sewing. You might want your tomato. Mine does not have the nifty little jalapeno or raspberry, but that's okay. It's just a place that if you need to take a pause with your sewing, you can put your needle in there and you won't lose it. Also, you want to make sure you have your snips, scissors. You can have your bigger scissors. I have small pair of scissors. I have 1,000,001 different scissors, so pair of nice scissors that will cut thread easily, and some thread. So I've got a couple of end spools for me because I've been doing this for so long. So I've got that one. This is another, came from another kit I had. This is just a spool that's almost over, so I'm going to utilize some of that. This is a great way to get rid of some of those. I do want to touch base on if you have older thread, you always want to do a thread check on this thread, because if it's older and it's been exposed to like a lot of light or a lot of heat, the thing with thread is that it does sometimes have a bit of a shelf life, which a lot of people don't realize. And what that means is that the thread should not break easily. It should hold up, because if it breaks easily, that means you're going to lose an entire seam, and we don't want that. Okay, so if I do this now, look, I'm only putting my right there, and I'm just going to tug on it. It doesn't break. I can apply some pressure and it doesn't break. However, if you do get thread that you apply like the least amount, like I'll test this one. I think this one's fine, but I'm going to test it. Oh, that one's good. But if it were to snap, don't use that thread. You can keep the spool, especially on the wooden ones, for like decoration. Some people like to put them in glass jars. But don't sew with that. And I sometimes will actually take like a red Sharpie and put a red dot on the top, so to remind myself that though that is not a useful piece of useful spool thread anymore. It's more for decorative. Like I said, if you use it and you sew a seam with it, the littlest amount of pull on it will cause it to shred. That's why sometimes with vintage garments, you get a garment and suddenly the entire seam is coming out. It's because that thread that was stitched with it has dry rotted, and that needs to be redone. So I want to show you the other thing that I have is this really cool, somebody made this for me, and if you get into sewing a lot of different things, this is a nice thing to have. It's this little book that somebody made for me with a button on the front. Oh, look, a button. And a little bit of elastic or a ribbon. You can do 2 ribbons even. And when you open it up, it has these felt pages. And those purpose, as you can tell, is for different kinds of needles. See, I've got these smaller needles. Those needles, these curved needles, I tend to use from millinery. Finding small, thin gauge sewing needles for millinery is a little harder now. I feel like I'm super thick. I don't know why. But I have all my needles in here. I don't lose them inside of a pin cushion. But if I'm sewing, I do tend to keep a pin cushion just to put it on, and also to hold all my pins. So for me, my pin cushions tend to be just while I'm working on that current garment. But I have all different lengths. Needles come in all different gauges, in sizes. My favorite tends to be a size 9. Some people like them a little thicker. So just learn what your favorite gauge is. And not all needles are the same. They have different purposes. So like this big thick one, that's usually for furniture. Okay, so knowing what your needle is for, see, I got all kinds of different things in here, is a good thing to have, because you want to know. And see, I ended up pinning through that, so I'll have to fix that at some point. But let's get started. I'm going to pull out a needle. Okay, woohoo! Lovely needle, right? It's got an eye at the top. You kind of see it. An eye at the top. Maybe if I use this background, this is a good background. It's got an eye at the top. Sewing machine needles have an eye by the point, and that's because it's got to pull thread down into the machine, which was a very big deal. So I'm going to take my needle for now. I'm going to stick it in. I like to put it in the green part because it's less likely to sink, but you know. Hello again, guys. Okay, so what is Barbie doll? How long do we cut our thread? First rule of thumb. thread your needle
while the thread is still attached to the spool.
That's not a good idea.
For a number of reasons.
One being we don't. If you go to thread your needle and you lose control of the spot, this spool is going to go rolling all over the place, get tangled on things, and another huge mess. I am not a fan of having to clean up a whole lot. So any more than I have to. And also get caught in chairs, trip people. I mean, like, thread can be dangerous, y'all. So what I'm going to do is cut it if Barbie don't like. Okay, so Barbie don't like. Barbies can't bend their arms. Okay. Or I mean, they can't straighten. So you'll never see it be this fully out. Be here. So Barbie don't like. From there to there. Okay. You can also go down the length of your arm to about the midpoint of your body. And that is usually a good length. It's about a yard. You can go to your shoulder if you want to feel a little more secure. Then you're going to take that and you're going to clip that. If I tell you twice Barbie don't link, pull it twice, and then you'll clip. Okay. So give me just a minute, and I will switch back over. So right before we start learning how to thread our needle, I just wanted to show you what I mean about if you tug the thread, it pops. So I pulled on that thread pretty hard, and it didn't do anything. But this is older. It's on a wooden spool. And if I do this, watch what happens. See how that broke? This is pretty thick thread. For it to break like that, that's dry rotted thread. Don't use thread that does that, okay? And I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure, like literally. I am just holding it like this. See how it's like that? And then doing this. And it just snaps. It should not snap like that, believe it or not. Thread is a lot stronger than that. It's a couple of fibers, long strings of fiber that are also twisted upon each other. So as you can tell, really sad. So like I said, what I do is I will take a red marker or something and put an X on it, that kind of on both sides, to remind me not to use it. It's only for decoration. And some people like to use these for a variety of different things. You can do all sorts of stuff. So they're great for little pulleys. Sometimes I use that. So don't use thread that pops like that. Okay. So here is what's going on. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to thread your needle. Okay. So we've got our needle. We've got our thread I just cut. So you can moisten the end, this end, right? And thread your needle. So your needle is going to go from thread. The thread goes into the needle, not the needle coming to the thread. If you've ever read a certain book by Mark Twain, I believe it's Tom Sawyer, he got caught because he was threading a needle and he threaded it, tried to thread it, the needle to the thread and not the thread to the needle. Okay? So what you want to do is you want to make sure thread to the needle. Okay? For some people, their eyesight is not so wonderful like that. So, see, I've got that all threaded. And then you just pull it down as far as you need to. So, for single thread, you're going to pull that tail, I call it the tail, down about halfway. Or even make that part shorter if you need to. Okay? So, because what happens is as you sew, you'll come down to the end, and then the closer I get to where my double is, I wish this would focus. The closer I get to where my double is, it's not going to, sorry guys, I can just tug on my needle alone, and it will lengthen where this is laying and make it easier. You'll see it better in a little bit when we start sewing. So unthread that, and you will want to rethread your needle 2 or 3 times just to make sure you found the way that you like. Don't be afraid to try new things, because I just learned this one, and I rather like it. It's kind of cool. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your thread, the end of your thread, and you are going to fold that like this. So you've got a loop. See? Got a loop. And then I'm going to take that, and I'm going to hold it really close. Really, really close. Come on, focus. There you go. See? Holding it really close. Oops. Trying to grab my needle. And then now I'm going to take that and I'm going to squeeze it so it becomes a little smaller. And I'm going to feed that loop through the eye of my needle. And you can actually work it to go through the eye of that needle. Magical! Now, if I had a thicker thread, I could probably then feed that thicker thread through there and pull it through, but we don't need that. So magic, okay? So you can do it by looping the end. The other thing you can do is some of your kits came with this really cool thing, right? It's got this metal piece, right? Kind of looks like it was once upon a time a coin that got smacked a little hard and needed a new purpose. It's really made of like aluminum. And then it's got this really cool little hook here, all right, or loop. What you're going to do is you're going to take this part here, remember how we just fed that loop through with the thread? Well, we're going to put this metal through there. It's going to go through a little easier, okay? So here we go. There's my eye. I'm feeding my threader through there, okay? So I've got it like that. The threader, the little tiny metal part, the little wire is through there. Be gentle. They pull out really super easily, okay? And then you're going to take the end of your thread, all right? So I'm going to readjust a little bit because this is a little harder when I'm thinking about it, okay? And I'm just going to put that through that wire. I'm trying to make sure this stays put. See, through that big wire. See, it's just kind of hanging out. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. See, we're just kind of hanging out. Flip, flip. Okay. Okay. All right, so it's in there. It's in there. Okay. Now, you're going to take your needle and slide it off, but you want to hold that wire as you pull, so it doesn't pull out your wire from your actual needle threader. And then you have, just pull your threader off, put it away so you don't lose it, and you've got a threaded needle, okay? So that is how you thread your needle. Yay! Now you need to know how to tie your knots. So I'm going to start another video so you can see the different ways to tie knots. Okay, so here's the thing about thread. When you thread your needle, you need to know, you should ask the question, do you want single thread, double thread, or quadruple thread? If it is single thread, it's going to be so that it's, you know, up by the needle where it has to fold over is one thing. And then you come all the way further down you go, becomes single thread at the end, okay? So this half has single thread, which is where our knot's going to end up at. This part looks like it's double, but it's not really. It's really just a tail. If I were to tell you you need to use double thread means that both ends of your thread, after they have gone through the eye of the needle, match up together, and you will tie your knot with those two ends being together. You're marrying those together. If I were to tell you you need quadruple thread, like, oh my God, we have to fix something in wardrobe and we got to get this on here like now, you can use what we call quadruple thread. And that's when you go ahead and before you feed it through the needle eye, you've gone ahead and you have matched up your two ends. And then you're going to take those two ends, probably have to use your needle threader, and you're going to thread the two ends through your needle. And then once you get it all the way, you're going to take and match up the loop end, up to your ends, and you'll tie those together. Okay, and when you have to tie those two together, you just loop it and pull it, and it's fine. The other ones, you will need to do a special kind of knot so that we have the least amount of ick as possible. It will take practice. You will need to practice each of these knots 3 times to see which one you like the best. And it's okay if you like both, you want to use one for one and one for another, that's normal, that's cool. So, to tie my knot, the first one I'm going to show you is the one that wraps around the finger. This is the one that my grandmother taught me, and once you get it, you got it. So the first thing I do is I lick my finger. I know, this is so gross, right? But you can moisten it with like a wet sponge or something, a little hand sanitizer maybe. We're getting creative here. Basically, it's just to help have a little bit of lubrication to make it go off your finger. I would not say lotion is not the appropriate way to do that. You will discover how dirty your hands are if it's a white thread. Okay, so licking my finger, I'm looking at the my fingerprint. You know how it has that like bullseye right there? I'm going to lay it there. I'm pointing it toward me and I pinch it. Okay? Then I'm going to round, going away from me, I'm going to wrap it once around, and I'm crossing them over each other. So if I hold this here so you can see, I cross them over each other. And I'm going to pinch it so that both of them live together. See? It's around my finger. I have it pinched. Now what are we going to do? I'm just kind of loosely holding this so I don't lose it. And I'm going to roll it off my finger, all the way off. Don't be afraid. It will be fine, I promise. But you are doing that so that they twist up and be friends. All the way off your finger. See? I kind of just rolled it until it just came off my finger, and now I've got this nice little lasso loop, right? Now I'm going to reach above my lasso loop, and I'm just going to run my finger down my thread. Okay? Boop. See? Look at that. See, I've got a little bit of a loop on it. Got a little bit of a loop. So I'm going to clip off that loop. That's the tail. So you want to get rid of your little loops, okay? So you're going to try that again. So let's try that again. However far up your finger you put it is how thick your your knot's going to be. So we're trying that again. I'm putting this up against my finger, right where the bullseye of my fingerprint is. You can have it be longer, that's fine. Wrap it and cross. Cross them over, I'm pinching down. And then I'm just going to pinch, as I'm pinching, I'm just pushing it off. Do not try to roll out and back, out and back. You're undoing all your work. Don't do that. So I'm just rolling it all the way off until it does that. Okay? Reach it above. I'm reaching above my loop. See, whoop, loopsy loops. And I'm just going to pull it. I'm pulling it. I'm pulling it. I am pulling. And then I have a knot. So sometimes you can tug on that little string, or the little, not a string, thread, on the little end thread and pull it, and it softens it up. But that is your knot. And so you want to make sure you trim, you want to trim away the excess, okay? So make sure you trim away all your little extra bits. If you accidentally cut your knot, it's okay. It just means you need to practice some more. So you get to do it again, all right? So now we're going to do this one more time, because like I said, try to do your knots 3 times each, okay? So I'm going to do this much faster. I lick my finger, I wrap it around my finger, I roll it off, hanging. See, that's not necessarily loop, but it's okay. Reach above, and I pull it. Tug, tug. Look, I've got me a tail. We don't like tails like that. How rude. So we're going to clip off our tail. Okay? And then that's ready to sew. I mean, you have to tie a knot, which we're not doing for basting stitches, but you have to learn how to do this. Okay? Now the second one is done using your needle. So what you're going to do is, let's see if I can get nice and close. So what you're going to do, here, let me see if I put it down lower, maybe that would help. I think there's just a little too much space. Whoops. As I almost unthread my needle. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. All right. So I've got this, right? And I'll also do this because I think also the grid is not helping to do us any favors. Yes, this is my son's Kindle that I'm now going to use for a backdrop in the hopes that it will help the camera to focus. Okay, so what you're going to do, we're going to take our needle, we're going to cross them over. Okay, see, got it crossed over. All right, and I'm going to hold it where the point side is so that it's crossed over and that you can see where it doesn't quite go past it. Pinch it in the middle. Okay, I'm holding on to it. So now this is my point. I'm going to wrap this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Keep a good amount of tension on it, all right? Pull that thread in between your fingers. So all that thread is pinched inside my finger right now, okay? And then now I'm going to push, you can push it from the back, and I'm going to pull my thread, and it will create a really cool knot, but you got to keep it pinched, okay? Like that. See, I got a really tiny little knot, okay? Okay, I don't like this color. It's not working for me. All right, so let's try that again. Okay, so maybe this will work. I'm gonna try anything. I will try anything for you guys. Okay, I'm gonna pull it back up. Maybe I was just trying to be helpful and not really being helpful. It's a thing. It happens. It's okay. All right, so let's do that again. Give you some distance. Okay, so we did it once. See, it was a nice little a nice little knot. Try it again. We're going to take our ends, match them over, and pinch it on the needle point. Okay, so there's my thread. Woo! Okay, now pinch the end of it. It can even if it goes past, it's fine. Don't worry about it. They just it needs to overlap and not be like all the way up on your thread. So your thread, it needs to be near the end of the thread. Okay, now I'm going to take this, I'm going to wrap it 3 times. Once, twice, thrice. That's the fun part. I'm going to pull it down until it's between my fingers. Nice, good tension. You will have to loosen your pinching just so you can pull your needle. So some people have I've got mine down on a pretty good space. So when you pull it through, you then need to move over and grab the actual thread, or else you'll just unthread your needle. Okay? So I've pulled it all the way down, and voila. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to clip that tail. Always, always, always clip your tail. I count off for tails. Okay, so that's it. All right? I won't focus. This makes my heart sad. That's okay. All right, so now we're going to do it one more time. So here, overlapping, I'm pinching on the side that has the point. See, there's my eye. Pinch in front of the eye. You're going to wrap it 3 times. Once, twice, thrice. Pull it down into the finger. See, I've got a little, I don't quite have enough. That's okay. I'm going to come behind, I'm going to push so I have a better grip. Keep pinching, holding onto my thread, and pulling until it comes out of my hand. And then I have, I have my knot. Okay? It's a knot. It's a little bit naughty. And then, looking at my thread, I'm going to clip away my tail, because I don't like tails. I don't like them. All right, you need to clip it as close to that knot as you can without cutting your knot. All right. So now that we've done that, yay for knots! Practice your knots until you're happy and they look good, and you're not frustrated. It does not want to focus now. I apologize, guys. All right. Practice those knots 3 times each, or however many times until you get it without thinking. It will make this process go much faster. Okay? So now we are going to move on to our first round of stitching. Okay?